Let's head to some of their coverage next.
And he was found not guilty on those are significant. Of 8 women felt like even with the tense like Cassie Ventura, felt these were adults that they didn't, much like what was the argument with the Harvey Weinstein. The jury had to be unanimous in finding that satisfy a racketeering charge. They include kidnapping, witness tampering, drug distribution. They couldn't just say, well, I think there were these two, and then the other jurors say, well, I saw those two, and then say, okay, there was racketeering. They had to agree on which two, and apparently they were not going to do that, and thus the decision. Guys?
You know what's kind of interesting? The prosecution must be very disappointed. The Rico count obviously would have been putting away Sean Diddy Combs for the rest of his life. Very important count. And then the other two that he was found not guilty on, sex trafficking of Jane, sex trafficking of Cassie, those probably would have carried bigger sentences as well for prison. This guilty on transporting people for prostitution, 2 counts. I think the maximum is 10 years.
Yeah.
And according to the New York Times, when Diddy heard that, he turned around to his family, gave them like a sign that he was praying, and then pumped his fist.
Well, obviously, one would assume that he's relieved that he's found not guilty on the sentence or charges that would give him a longer sentence. If this holds up, he's still going to prison for a while. You can say the maximum sentence is 10 years. He's already served about 1 because they arrested him in September of last year. So it'll be interesting to see, do they run them concurrently, which means at the same time, or do they make them consecutive, because they can do that with 2 charges, and you can give them, 8, 10 years. Now you're talking 16 to 20 if you put them together. So that's going to be something to look forward to look to in the future. But the big news is that the more serious charges, particularly the Rico charge, which would have put him away for life, he was found not guilty of.
They must have been close to a decision last night, because they told the judge they were hung up on that. The judge said, I want you to continue deliberating, but take the night off, go home, come back. It seemed like 1, 2, 3, they came back and they said to the judge they had a decision on that.
It was less than an hour of deliberation today, after 12 hours of deliberation previously. And I think Arthur made a very good point there in that, people will say, okay, they were deadlocked. This is kind of maybe what goes on with jurors, is they get in the room, and that's why they're like, man, it's the end of the day, I can't change your mind about this. So this is not going to happen. They write the judge a note, and he goes, everybody go home, take a deep breath, sleep on it. And the next day, the other juror, if there was 1 or 2, you sleep on it, you come back, and maybe you think it a little bit differently. And obviously, whoever or however many that were the holdup, they were holding it up from becoming a not guilty, because obviously the majority was on that side, and that's the way it swung this morning.
So interestingly, we had Peter Frankel on, former prosecutor, current defense attorney, in fact represented one of the personal assistants to Diddy in the trial. He was on our show earlier today, and he said the federal prosecutor in this case has like a 98%
well, the Southern District of New York has 95% conviction rate.
And so this is obviously a mixed bag, and they have to be disappointed. They didn't get the Rico count. They didn't get the sex trafficking count. They got basically transporting, sex traffickers.
But not to minimize it, they're still serious charges.
Right.
They're the lesser of the charges, but they're still, if you're facing potentially 10 years in prison, then you're probably not thinking it's too light, but it's much, much better than it would have been, because